Create a life of entrepreneurial freedom with insights from successful creatives, entrepreneurs, and investors. Discover how they overcame challenges and turned their biggest dreams into reality. They share their personal success playbook so you can build the business and life you truly want. Welcome to Passion Millionaire, the podcast by Robert Roth. Rock and roll your dreams.
Welcome to today's episode of the Passion Millionaire Podcast. Excited to be able to present you a new angle about numbers in business. We've got Albert Butler on today, and he is a partner in a national accounting firm in the US, certified public accountants. He's sitting in Atlanta, and he helps entrepreneurs to prepare for the next generation. So that not only means preparing the numbers and the budgets for a business, but it also means initiating the conversations, maybe also hard conversations to be done in the family to actually be able to have a healthy transfer of a business going on. So I'm really curious about the learnings for all of us. Welcome, Albert Butler.
Wow, Robert, that was an amazing introduction. I thank you so much. I thank you for the opportunity to talk with your audience. And to your point, yes, I'm a partner in a national accounting firm. But the biggest thing that I like to share is that one thing about me, I'm very relentless, and I've cared so much about my clients. It's a very important thing to dive in and understand where they are today, so I can help them scale to where they want to go for tomorrow. So that's one thing that I really take a passion, and one thing I really like to take our time with over here, so we can make sure our clients are prepared for tomorrow.
Yeah, it makes total sense. So I'd be super curious when you're meeting a new client, like in what situation would that client typically be? What size of company does this owner usually run? And also, is there already active thoughts or problems going on when it comes about thinking about transfer of the company, or is that a thing that's far in the future still?
So it's interesting because most of the time, clients normally come, especially on the tax side of the business, when they have a problem. When they have a huge
Yep.
problem that they're overwhelmed by, and they just can't figure it out on their own. And that's when they come tap me on the shoulder, and I can jump in to help them. And my help normally starts off with not talking about the initial problem. We start talking about the initial person. And that's key, and that's critical. And I think a lot of accounting firms or CPAs might not do that, or this is always a kind of a new experience for the person. They're like very, very shocked when I say, "Hey, that's fine. I know you got that problem, but let's talk about you. Let's talk about where you are today. Let's talk about what it took for you to get to where you are today. Let's talk about your habits, because all these things are a combination of your success and your failures, and in those failures, your opportunities for future success." So it's very, very important that we actually do that and take the time to go, I would say, surgical with the client, to talk about things they never talked about before with the CPA, because I'm like your financial doctor. You come to me, let's have a real conversation.
All right. So they come with whatever tax problem that is presented in front of them. You go ahead and help them figure out the solution. And then what you've just explained will be kind of the next logical step for you, the way you are running your business with them, basically going into depth, understanding them personally and their situation. Did I get that right?
That's exactly right, Robert. We take the
Okay.
time.
So,
Yes, we take the time with them.
yeah, what would you typically find then? Because I'm still trying to understand, like, what is the profile of this person, right? That is coming first with a tax problem, but like what size of company would that be? And then what would be the situation that is presenting after you've helped them maybe solve the initial issues?
Let's talk about the scale of these individuals. I can take anyone from the local mom and pop on the corner who has a grocery store, or just a small entrepreneur type endeavor, all the way up to the large corporate CEO. And in every one of those swings, these are people. These are people who have general wants, needs, and desires. And in those wants, needs, and desires, we take the time to understand what those actually are. Because the narrative of your tax return, the narrative of your daily walk, the narrative of your daily flow comes down to what's your true why of why you do what you do? Why did you get up today? Why did you put your pants on to go out and take on this world? What happened to make you say, hey, you know what? I really want to push hard for this. So in those hard pushing for this, what is the this? We go into detail about the small things so we can understand the big picture, because the big picture is going to help us with that potential issue or problem that you came to me with to begin with. And that's what's important. I think a lot of people really don't understand the gravity of understanding how small things can turn into big things from an escalation scale perspective. So I don't want to rush clients out the door. A lot of CPAs do that. I don't want to sit back and have you thinking that something's going to be magically overnight, because normally it took you a while to get to where you are. It took you a while for that problem to matriculate to where it's at right now. So we're not gonna. It's not a rush thing. We're gonna get it right. We're going to get it right, and we're going to be detailed about getting it right, so we can make sure that this problem does not come up again.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get from the general, because what you're answering is like basically very general answer, which could be true for totally different type of company. And we're talking about, business owners that are planning for not only their future, but the next generation, and then handing over a business at some point. So getting very specific about that, like what is the typical cases that you are seeing?
Here's a story for you. And I'm gonna be very, very open about this one, because I've talked to this individual many times, and they're very okay with sharing it. I have several authors that I work with, and this particular one, his success came through certain type of books. I would say they're erotica books, and these erotica books are very, very popular. But what made them popular is that he tapped into a niche, and he started making a lot of money, a lot of money. And when he started making all this money, a very, very clear statement: more money, more problems. So he's making decisions by making all this money and not knowing really what he's getting into, and he's investing in other businesses, and it's just a lot of things, dealing with bankers and not having the right type of way of talking to them, and then he's doing all these things so he can help prepare for passing all his success on to his kids. Well, here's the problem. If you decide that you want to pass that success on, are you going to pass on success, or are you going to pass on chaos? And that's what we come in at, to make sure you understand not to pass on chaos. So what do you have to do? Well, here's one. You
Like
have
how
to
would
make
that chaos
sure.
look like in this case? And then
Yeah.
what do you
So
bring? Yeah.
this chaos is normally tax chaos, because you haven't paid your taxes. This chaos
Oh, okay.
also, yes,
Yeah.
this chaos also turns into your financial statement chaos, because you haven't prepared your books. This chaos also looks like when you want to go to a banker and get financing. You don't have this data information that they need. So you were getting denied over and over and over again. And when you get denied and you need to have that working capital, you can't expand, you can't grow, you can't develop. So
Mhm.
it all comes back to understanding the clarity of your numbers. It all comes back to writing that proper narrative through your tax return of your numbers. It all comes back to the blocking and tackling of the accounting of your numbers. That's 100% where your CPA comes in at. And 100% we're having that relationship with a CPA to understand where you're trying to go, to understand where you're trying to scale, to understand what's important to you. That's the way that you can actually get your taxes done right. You can get your books and records done right, but that's all past tense. What about the present tense? What about the treasury function of your life? What about having proper cash flow? What about having those relationships with the bankers? That's where your CPA comes in as well too, to make sure you can have those conversations, to make sure you're not being taken advantage of. Make sure your contracts are written in a certain type of way that's to your benefit and not to your detriment. So we can get ready to forecast. We can budget the right way. And also, the biggest part, we can prepare for the exit the right way. You can't exit on chaos, but you can on your true success that you've planned for.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's quite interesting. So therefore, in this example, like there was chaos in the finances. There was no tax returns done for, that's how it sounded like to me, for a while.
Years.
Okay. For years. All right. So you were able to fix that. And then you were able to go ahead and also even go into the relationships with banks, etc.
That's
And
exactly right. That's
okay,
exactly right. And I always
organize
tell
all of that.
clients as well too. You want to make sure that you're preparing yourself on a daily basis for the exit. What if somebody comes in right now and says, "Robert, hey, you know what? I want to buy your podcast." Are you prepared to sell it? Do you have the proper valuation done to be able to sell it? Do you know where your numbers are? Do you have that level of clarity? Did they make you an offer? Do you know if their offer is even reasonable? Those are the type of things that conversation you have to have. That's the type of prudence that you have to have consistently. I said this probably to you earlier, but I want to share it with your audience. It's called the 5 muscles of enterprise. Within those 5 muscles, you have leadership, operations, sales, IT infrastructure, and accounting, the heartbeat of all of this. You have to be a solid leader. You're the one who decides you want to do this. You have to be able to have discernment in your decisions. And that takes a level of counseling as well, too, to make sure you're prepared for those hard decisions that you're going to have to make as a leader. I tell folks all the time, you decide you want to start a business, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be that person, it's lonely at the top. Sometimes you're making decisions and you have to do them quickly and you have to do them with proper discernment because there's 2 C's in leadership, communication and courage. As soon as you open your mouth to say that you're going to do something, somebody's going to challenge you. And you have to have the courage to stand on what your decision actually was and realize, too, that you're going to have to face the consequence. Consequences are good and are bad, but you're going to have to be the one to face it. So that's the leadership piece. Operations, you got to know how your business works. You got to know how to put everything together. Those are conversations we have as well, too. Sales, can you sell? Can you bring people in? Do you have leads that's coming in? If you can't sell, then you're not going to be in business very long. IT, do you have all your infrastructure set up? Do you have your proper data set up? Do you have the proper security set up around your cyber? All those things are important. And then lastly, of course, accounting, the heartbeat of it all. Every transaction, every decision, every cycle comes through the accounting department. It's called equilibrium, equivalent exchange. You're going to have one transaction going one way, another transaction going another way, and they have to balance. That's the beauty of it all, the balancing of the scales of the accounting.
So in the accounting is where you come in, or why are you mentioning all the other parts right now?
All of these I come in. All of these, because this is true business.
How are you serving your clients in all of the other parts?
This is true business consulting. This is true understanding how to scale. This is having the person that allows you to tell you the truth about understanding where you are and where you're trying to go. And if we can't find the answer between my relationship, I have the relationships to bring in to get other individuals, other professionals, because you can't do it by yourself. That's the hard truth that a lot of entrepreneurs try to jump in and they want to do way more than what they should. You can't wear multiple hats. You have to wear the one hat. Pick your hat and do it great. Because once you decide you really want to scale your business, you have to bring on support inside the business as well too. But you have to know something about those 5 muscles. You have to know at least the baseline of those things, because you want to make sure you bring in on professionals that can guide you and lead you, but you don't want to be led in the blind. You got to know some parts of it. So I help you with that as well too. So it's all of this comes back to the relationship that you have with your CPA. It's one of the most powerful relationships that you can possibly have.
Mm-hmm. And let's go back also to the topic of handing over your company to your successor. So what have you seen there? Like, I'd be specifically curious about one thing. Like, is there a difference that you see when, let's say there's somebody who has built a company and he has built it in a way so that it is exit ready. So whatever that means, let's just call it exit ready. And is there difference when this business owner is selling to somebody on the market versus handing that over within the family? I'd be curious to learn about those differences that you have seen.
It is drastically different. Different. Because a lot of times I'm going to start with the latter first. When you pass it on to someone in the family, there's expectations that you've already laid out through the years that my son or my daughter is going to just take over this, and we're going to keep on running down the line. We're going to be super great, super successful. But the question comes in, what if your son or your daughter doesn't want to do that? What if they really just don't like the business that you're driving at all? And it puts the entrepreneur in a very, very uncomfortable situation, because now you got to make a different decision that my children don't want this. Now I need to try to sell it to try to gain some type of value out of it. And now I'm scrambling to do that. and what it really looks like. And a lot of times what I've seen is that people think their business is worth a whole lot more than what the market think it's worth. And that's a hard pill to swallow when you think your business is worth several million and it comes down to only being worth 1 million, sometimes 500,000. And you're like, wow, that is not the valuation that I was expecting. So my interest in this truly is to help guide your business to be a business that somebody wants to buy all the time. How do you do that? Again, having your numbers in place is one thing, but also having your processes in place. That's critical. How do you flow? How do you make sure that every order turns into cash? How do you make sure that when it's time to make purchases, that your procurement process is solid, documented, and flows consistently? How do you make sure you're closing those books to be able to make sure those numbers are clear to give you clarity? Those are the things that I bring to the table. Those are the things that your CPA brings to the table. Those are the conversations you should have to understand, to make sure it's documented across the board, that your policies are documented, your procedures are documented, and your overall business culture is properly documented. That way, when it's time for evaluation to come on the table, you're already prepared. You go to the table with your number as compared to you going to the table with no number. That's a big, big, big change of mindset.
Hmm. Yeah, thanks for that. And also, I'd be curious, one more deep dive into this, like difference between, okay, I'm selling my business on the market or I'm handing it over within the family. Are there different types of problems coming up in the, let's call it negotiations?
Always, always different. The valuation is always the biggest piece, but then I would tell you that the due diligence phase of the deal, it's always tension there. Why? Because again, you think that you've presented your numbers a certain type of way, but then the person that's just buying it has to go do diligence to make sure that it is properly valued. If those numbers come back a little bit different, you're like, whoa, wait a minute. That's not what my valuation was supposed to come down to. So that type of tension does come up, but that's also a guided tension as well too. If you're working with a CPA, if you're working with a firm, you should already have those numbers in place. You should already have done your due diligence. A lot of times entrepreneurs don't do that. Also, what happens if you pass away? That's a real question too. Do you have your proper insurances in place if you were to pass away? All of those things have to come on the table. That's a very hard conversation to have because we think we're going to live forever, but it's not true. We're not.
So
we're all going to
that,
transition away.
yeah, that's a very interesting point you're bringing up. Like, what would be those proper insurances to put in place?
Having that key man insurance, you have to have that. Why? Because if you don't, that claim is important because you are the one that's been driving the business for so long. You are the key person. You are the key driver of the force of it all. So you have to have insurance in place if something was to happen to you. Without this podcast, Robert, who would run it if you were not there? So that's a real thing. We have to step back and think about that. For my firm, I have insurance policies on me 100%. Why? Because I am very valuable to this chair that I sit in. And if I was to move, there would be a disruption in the business. So all those things are always so important to have that conversation, to make sure that you're properly prepared, to make sure that you have that insurance in place, to make sure your numbers are available for true clarity.
Mm-hmm. So key man risk. All right. What other risks are there that you would insure for? And I mean, for key man, basically you need another person that can jump in and with whatever agreement that will make sure that the business can continue running in case something happens. But what other risks would be there? Except
I would say
risk?
I'm going to go back to valuation risk. That's huge. That's a huge number because if you think your business is worth one thing and it's truly not, those insurances still have to be put in place as well too. There are policies that'll help you with that as well too. And also working with your CPA, we also help you make the connection with your insurance agents.
Yep. So for valuation risk, like how would it look like and how would you fix that?
So the way you fix it is, again, you have the conversations early. You work with your CPA early. It's almost a tragedy when it comes up and it's time for that exit to take place and you have not done these things. So it turns into a transaction that could have taken a few months to a transaction that have to take place over years to someone actually leaving the table because what they thought they was purchasing is really not what they were getting. To you making the decision, I'm just going to sell the assets of the business and then move on, as compared to actually selling the actual trademark of the business and that having real value to it. I'll give you one other example, one quick story. I have several clients that forget to go do a trademark for their business. You don't have to have the actual trademark for your actual company, and you forget to stay on top of it. You forget that you have to make sure you keep registering that and make sure that it stays active. Why? Because that trademark is your intellectual property. You have to make sure that that's established. How else can you do your proper valuation? How can you make sure that your EBITDA that you want to project is going to be laid in a way that that trademark is an anchor for that? Those things that entrepreneurs forget about all the time. And that's why you need to have a good team around you to make sure that you are driving the business in a way that's going to be profitable when the exit comes.
Mm-hmm. All right. What else would be big parts of valuation being the way, you want a high valuation, right? If you sell your business. So what would you say are the other drivers? Okay, there's intellectual property, and then what else?
Let's not skip on the day-to-day prudence of the processes. That's part of it as well too. Let's not skip on the actual client list. Those things is extremely important. It still goes back to those five muscles of enterprise. Each one of those muscles actually has value applied to them, and the valuation is done on how well the entrepreneur has set those muscles in place. So in every aspect of every business, if you are driving yourself like you really want to scale, if you are pushing yourself like you want to flex those muscles on a continual basis, those are the things that have to take place. Now, working with your CPA will allow you to do that. Will allow you to ask those types of questions. And it turns into not just a transactional type conversation. It turns to a personal conversation, because this is where you're going to put your money at. This is the investment that you have to make into the business, and that helps drive the valuation of the business. That true investment, that true time, that true energy of working those muscles, that's what's going to give you what you need. And there's a risk attached to every last single one of those. There's regulatory risk. There's operational risk. There's the legal risk aspect of it. Those risks have to be compensated for along the way by understanding where you are with those five muscles.
Mm-hmm. And then basically the big risks when handing over a company, as you said, is the key man risk, then valuation risk, and then there was a third one that you've mentioned before. Which one was that again?
I'm gonna say that is transfer risk to the next generation.
Okay, so can you elaborate on that one a little bit?
So I'll give you another example. We have I've seen multiple times where the son has worked with the father and has been molded by the father to be able to take over the business. Unfortunately, I've also seen where it happens where the son, like I said before, has absolutely no real interest and was only doing it to make his dad happy. So the father transfers the business over to the son, and he just doesn't run the business the same way. And unfortunately, because that son might have been told that interest is just not there, over time, the business starts to degrade. And now we have another transfer that has to take place. Well, now we're trying to sell the business that was a whole lot better off before the son got his hand on it. Now the son has it and is degraded. And now the valuation is completely gone down. And now you're just on the market trying to make sure that you can get something out of it. That's a huge piece of this as well, too. And it's okay if the next generation doesn't want to go ahead and take on the business from the previous generation. That's okay. A lot of times we get so attached to that business that we put that business before family. And that's where we kind of really mess up at. You can't put the business before family. You have to put family first and understanding the needs of the family. And that part of it is that conversation that doesn't happen all the time. So now you have another generation taking over a business they don't really like, they don't really are not motivated behind it, and the value of it goes down. And now you got to sell it on anyway.
Super interesting. And I believe that's, as you already mentioned, like that's a big thing. You've seen this before several times. I personally have seen this before several times with people around me, let's call it. And I'd be curious if there was, I mean, that ties in to something I've said in the introduction, right? You're helping initiate those conversations in the family that are necessary for a healthy transaction into the next generation to happen, right? That ties in exactly into that. So I'd
Exactly
be
it.
super curious, right? How would you bring that up in those conversations? And also, like, if somebody's listening and potentially that person is in a similar situation or knows somebody who's in a similar situation, because if you can spot it that that's a problem right now, or at least you want to make sure if it's a problem, right? What would be those right questions to bring up? If I was a father of a son that I love to hand over my business, and I want to make sure that the business is being taken care of and not going down the drain, right? So what would be the questions I should be asking?
Robert, because you're the father, it's your responsibility to not just know who you are, but you need to learn who your son really is, who your daughter really is. You need to take that time to really spend with them and to ask them very powerful questions. What do you want to do? So, as simple as that. Having that conversation early on allows your children to trust, to be open and exposed because they're going through a lot. I'll tell you that the environment today is drastically different from the environment that I grew up in. The availability of data and information is astronomical at this point. And our children are being pulled in so many different directions with a lot of noise all around them. And having a family conversation to give them a solid signal, a solid focus of what to strive and grow for, doing that early as compared to waiting till late is so critical and so important. So having the conversation, simple questions. What do you like? What do you think about the business? Being exposed to show them the ins and outs of the business early, opening the door to allow them to see how you spend your money and what you spend it on. Letting them get a financial education early to realize that a lot of stuff that we talk about is not taught in school. A lot of these things about business are not taught in school. So understanding how the numbers make sense, not just for the business, but for the household at the kitchen table. Here's how we pay bills, children. Here's what it takes to make this house operate and run. And being able to show that to them, give them that level of interest, give them a level of independence in that as well too, to ask questions back to you and be okay with being able to give them a very truthful, honest answer. Now, mind you can't tell them everything all at once because some stuff might be a little bit too heavy for younger children. But as they're going through their teenage years and as they're coming up to go into adulthood, it's time to really be exposed and tell them the truth and let them really, really see what it takes. And then give them the opportunity to say, hey, you know what, Dad? Hey, you know what, Mom? I really don't want to do that. I want to go and do something else. I want to learn how to do an instrument. I want to go and be a whatever, whatever. Then the sky's the limit. I take clients on a process called the Circle of Dreams, and really have those questions about what really are your dreams. Not for a 10-year window, a 20-year window, but a 30, in some cases 40-year window. What are your real dreams, and what do you really aspire to do? Do that with your children and have that conversation with them and be open to what they have to say, but then help them narrow those dreams down to that one true purpose to help drive the narrative of not just for them, but also it's going to help the family. It's huge. Very, very important. I'll tell you, even for my own personal family, we do a monthly family discussion, and not just from who's in my household, but for my entire extended family. So you get multiple generations on this family discussion all at one time, from the grandparents, the great grandparents, to the ones who's in the workforce right now, to the teenagers, and even to the youngsters, all coming on a phone call at once on a Zoom call to have that conversation and have topics to talk about, current events or things that's going on we have questions about, and be in a safe space to open up to talk about it. I say all of this to say most people do not communicate internally with their family to understand what's really needed.
I find that really interesting what you're doing with this monthly call with and even the extended family that you're bringing on. So what are your main learnings out of that? And maybe what are the main learnings for some in the, closer as well as the extended family? Like, that's a very interesting thing you're doing there. So be curious to learn that.
I'll tell you, Robert, this is what you learn immediately. People are afraid to talk. That's what you learn. And you have to give them a safe space to be open to communicate. When you do that, people tell you about their worries, their concerns, but they also tell you about their dreams and aspirations. Some might decide, hey, you know what? Mom and dad, auntie and uncle, I'm dealing with an emotional thing right now where I feel anxiety and I'm depressed about something. And guess what the great aunt was going to say? I dealt with that too. Here's how I dealt with it, and here's what I was able to do. Those are the type of things that are so powerful. You're also going to hear the uncle saying, hey, we're doing a business over here that we need some help to be able to do the accounting right. Hey, Albert, I know that's what you do. Can you give us some guidance on that? Those type of opportunities open the door for the entire family to be open and tell the truth in a space that they don't feel like there's no judgment. And it's powerful when you do that with your family. You start to do it with your friends. And when you do it with your friends, you start doing it with your own business. And the communication vector just goes up a whole nother level. Communication is something so powerful these days, Robert.
I agree. I'd be curious, are you the one who has started doing this, this family call in your family, or was there somebody else who has started and you have taken over doing that?
I'll tell you that this actually started with my parents. Not the call itself, but the level of coming to the kitchen table to communicate and talk. My parents are no longer with us, but no worries. And I felt it important to expand this to the entire family. So to answer your question, yes, as far as the phone call, the Zoom call, the monthly meeting, yes, I'm the curator of that. But the guidance, the teaching, the learning came from my parents. And of course, it came from my grandparents as well, too, to share that, have that kitchen table conversation.
Wow, that's an awesome thing. I'm really happy to hear that. That's really exciting. And why did you decide to step up and then not only continue, but even, expand on that idea?
Yes.
Yeah.
Robert, I have been a CPA for over 25 years. And I have seen some of the things that, and I've learned so much. I've traveled all over the world. I tell people I've stayed at some of the nicest hotels and some of the worst hotels. I've eaten some of the nicest restaurants and some of the worst places. But the experience of the people that I've had a chance to meet are some of the best people globally, that I have friends in every part of this globe. But I've learned a set of skills that I felt it important that if I know it, my family should know it too. I should be able to pour everything that I know from everything that I've worked to build into them. And I open the door for all of them to take their disciplines of what they've learned and to pour it back into the family. Because there's another generation coming behind me, and they need to hear these stories. They need to understand these things so I can pour it off into them and across the board. So having the grandparents on the call or the great aunts on the call, they have so many stories that is astronomical that what they can tell you. Having the younger generation on the call, some of the things that they say is like, oh, I can't believe you just said that. But that's what they're dealing with these days. And if you don't give the platform to have the conversation, you're never going to know. So now who's telling them what they need to do? The internet? Social media? Or would it be better coming from the people that truly love them inside the family? So that's what the real crux of my practice and what I do. I'm a big believer in legacy. And I'll even give you a scripture in relation to it. Proverbs 13:22. A good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. It's biblical. And it tells you 100% that you have a mandated job to do, not for the children that you know today, but for the ones you might not ever meet. That's my mission, to help share that message with everybody that I cross paths with. You become a client, I'm going to talk to you from the perspective of family. I'm going to talk to you from the perspective of what you're doing to lead and guide that family. I'm going to talk to you not about your money, not about your business, but we have to scale you first to make sure you're strong enough to handle all the turbulence that's going to come your way, because life is hard. We have a lot of things we have to deal with on a consistent basis, but what are we really doing it for? We're doing it for the next generations.
Albert, I think you've just spoken the closing words for this episode, and I'm fascinated. What a CPA you are. You're different. I appreciate you hopping on this episode with me. I'd be curious if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do so?
The best way to do so, Robert, you can go to albertbutler.com, but the biggest piece, if you just Google Albert Butler CPA, you will see so many different things about me. I've been published on Forbes. I've been published on Yahoo Finance, Access Wire, across the board, and you will see some of the things that I've put out there. And in many cases, you'll be able to find out the truth of what I call accounting is the heartbeat of business, and truly the key to personal finance success. Is very, very important, and is one of those things that will really help scale you and scale your family.
Albert, appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Robert, you're a rock star. Thank you, sir.
Go to rockandrollyourdreams.com/podcast.